Rumi, the fire that burns the ego and sets you free. There is a quiet ache that lives within the human heart, a longing so profound it often goes unnamed. It stirs in the stillness of dawn, whispers in the solitude of night, and echoes through the crowded spaces of our lives. This ache is not merely a desire for something we lack, but a memory of something we once were, something we have somehow, somewhere, misplaced. It is the subtle tremor of separation, a soul's whisper recalling a forgotten union, a profound sense of having been torn from an original wholeness. We spend our days, our years, chasing shadows in the hope they might fill this void. We seek love in fleeting glances, validation in the applause of others, peace in the accumulation of possessions, and meaning in the endless pursuit of external achievements. Each new acquisition, each new connection, brings a momentary flicker of satisfaction, a brief respite from the gnawing emptiness. Yet, beneath the surface of these triumphs, the ache persists, a persistent, tender wound that refuses to fully heal. We build elaborate castles of identity, crafting stories of who we are, what we have, and what we believe, hoping these structures will shield us from the truth of our vulnerability, from the raw, exposed core of our being. This relentless striving, this endless reaching, often leads to an exhaustion that transcends the physical. It is a weariness of the soul, burdened by the weight of its own desires, its own expectations, its own carefully constructed self. You know this feeling, don't you? We find ourselves trapped in patterns, repeating cycles of hope and disappointment, drawn by the mirage of fulfillment just beyond reach. A deep frustration settles in, not with the world, but with an elusive internal barrier, a sense of being perpetually on the verge of understanding, on the cusp of true connection, yet always held back by an invisible veil. We yearn to dissolve into something larger, something more authentic, but find ourselves clinging to the very fragments that keep us small, separate, and perpetually hungry. Consider the seeker who dedicates their life to finding love. They search in every face, every touch, every shared moment, believing that another's affection will finally complete them. But what they often find is not love itself, but the amplified echo of their own longing, reflected back from the mirror of another's soul. They search for God, for truth, for ultimate reality, in sacred texts, in ancient rituals, in distant lands, only to meet their own reflection, their own preconceived notions, their own limitations. The weight of this search becomes a heavy cloak, obscuring the very light they seek, turning the journey into a burden rather than a revelation. What if this profound yearning, this insistent ache, is not a flaw to be fixed, but a compass pointing inward? What if the very pain of separation is not a curse, but a sacred invitation? An invitation not to acquire more, but to let go, not to build higher, but to dismantle. Not to seek an external savior, but to confront the internal architecture of our own making. This journey begins not with finding, but with losing, not with gaining, but with burning. It is a path that asks us to step into a different kind of fire, one that does not consume, but purifies, one that does not destroy, but transforms. It is the fire that burns the veil of illusion, the carefully constructed self, the ego that keeps us bound. And in its heat, perhaps, we might discover a freedom we never knew was possible. Before the possibility of such liberation, however, lies the profound human experience of navigating this inner terrain. We often find ourselves caught in a relentless internal dialogue, a ceaseless mental churning that seeks to define, categorize, and control every passing sensation and thought. This constant mental activity, far from bringing clarity, frequently obscures the very source of our disquiet. It's as if an unseen current pulls at us, a quiet undertow beneath the surface of our daily lives, urging us towards an unknown depth. Yet our conscious mind resists, preferring the familiar shores of logic and tangible outcomes. Consequently, we develop intricate strategies to manage this persistent internal unrest. We might immerse ourselves in ceaseless activity, filling every moment with tasks, entertainment, or social engagement, creating a vibrant, yet ultimately hollow illusion of fulfillment. Or perhaps we retreat into a world of intellectual abstractions, attempting to analyze and dissect the feeling until it loses its emotional charge, believing that understanding it conceptually is tantamount to resolving it experientially. These coping mechanisms, while offering temporary distraction, merely postpone the inevitable encounter with the raw, untamed essence of our own hearts. They become elaborate detours, keeping us from the direct path our soul yearns to walk. Consider the pervasive feeling of never quite being enough, a subtle whisper that tells us something is missing, even when all external indicators suggest otherwise. This isn't merely a fleeting insecurity. It's a profound, existential hum that resonates deep within. It compels us to strive, to prove, to accumulate, not out of genuine desire, but out of a desperate attempt to quiet that inner voice. We chase accomplishments, believing the next promotion, the next relationship, or the next material gain will finally provide the elusive sense of completeness. Yet with each apparent victory, the silence that follows often reveals the same underlying hunger, now perhaps even more pronounced. Furthermore, a significant part of this struggle involves our deep-seated attachment to the narratives we construct about ourselves. Our identity, woven from experiences, beliefs, and relationships, becomes a fortress against the perceived chaos of the unknown. To truly face the longing that transcends these narratives feels akin to dismantling the very walls of our being, a terrifying prospect. The ego, that vigilant guardian of our perceived self, fiercely resists any suggestion of its own dissolution, interpreting such an internal shift as a threat to its very existence. It clings to certainty, to definition, to what it knows, even if what it knows is a state of quiet dissatisfaction. The wound, once a source of pain and perceived weakness, becomes, as the mystic poets remind us, precisely where the light enters. It transforms from a closed door of suffering into an open window of profound insight and compassion. It is through these tender, exposed places that we connect not only with our deepest selves, but with the shared humanity of all beings. This is not a journey with a definitive end, a final destination where all questions cease. Instead, it is an ongoing dance, a continuous unlearning and remembering, a path walked not with heavy steps of striving, but with the light, receptive gait of surrender. Each moment becomes an invitation to shed another layer, to listen more deeply, to love more fully. And so the true practice begins now, not in grand gestures or monumental shifts, but in the subtle alchemy of each present moment. It is in the quiet courage to face the inner landscape without flinching, to embrace the ebb and flow of emotions as sacred messengers, and to recognize the divine spark that animates every breath. This is the path of the heart, illuminated by the fire of awareness, leading us not away from the world, but into a deeper, more profound engagement with it. May you find, in the silence that follows, the echoing truth of your own magnificent, unburdened self. May you remember what you have always known, and walk in the radiant light of your own awakened heart.